Alright, so we just watched the new trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day, and I want to talk about it. Not trying to spoil things in the movie, talking about rumors or anything, except for that one big one that's the one character that everyone has been talking about probably being in this movie, even though I don't really think this trailer gives us more or less information about her, but I may mention a certain potential big Marvel character that might be cast in this movie who doesn't even show up in the trailer outside of one shot that you have to turn the brightness up on a lot to see. Anyway, let's talk about this trailer. Now, I think the last trailer for this movie was okay. The problem with the Spider-Man movie is they've had a lot of leaked trailers that have made it into the world. I don't know if it's just a Sony thing or if it's an everybody thing, but it seems like Sony specifically has a problem with this. And there are even rumors that like the movie has been fully hacked and is out there online somewhere. I don't know, on the dark web or whatever. I hope that's not the case. I also think as long as this movie isn't bad, I don't think that's gonna matter. I think people will still see it. It's always hard to tell how much that actually affects box office. And you look at X-Men Origins Wolverine, you're like, oh, that leak really hurt the movie. And it's like, yeah, but also seeing the movie really hurt the movie. Like that movie just was not what people wanted. It's fine. Like I think the movie is good. People will want to go to the theater to see it. Anyway, that is here nor there because that is not covered in the trailer, obviously. The trailer ends with buy tickets now. It doesn't end with go on a Tor browser and pay somebody in Bitcoin to find this movie. But I want to talk about the things in the trailer that I liked, things that I was maybe a little bit confused by, and we'll get to it. First thing I liked, Scorpion looks great. I have been worried about Scorpion's design, and it seems like we will have multiple Scorpion scenes. However, the way this works a lot of the time is that the toy manufacturers are given early versions of character designs. It seems like they were given a slightly different version of the Scorpion character design than the one we're seeing here. Specifically, the tail is segmented in a different way. In this, it's more blocky in the other versions, and for whatever reason, it kind of has like a roller coaster track vibe to it. This one looks way better, and I think this fight with Scorpion looks cool. I'm glad to see Michael Mando back. I know there's some people that are probably a little bit upset because they're like, oh, he should be the whole villain. Like, he should be the main villain of this, and he's not going to be. But I think this is better than nothing. I will say, the one thing that I think is a little silly, the opening for this trailer has narration coming from Peter, saying that he's gone over the edge. Something's gone wrong. I'll play, there's 4 lines.
What is happening to me?
And then,
I'm losing my mind.
And then,
I am totally out of control.
And finally,
I gotta fix whatever this is right now.
It's a little much. I think you could have gotten away with 2 of them. Especially the last one that ends a little high. Kind of feels like a video game character who's like in a long fight scene, but needs to have different lines they can say. So it's like 10 versions of the same line, like, oh, I'm in trouble. This is gonna be bad. I hope I don't lose control. I don't know, but yeah, it's cute. I think it's fine. Sometimes you need to really tell audiences the same thing over and over again. I do think it's cool that they give Spider-Man black eyes. I imagine a lot of people will see that and go, oh, Venom. And it's definitely not Venom, or at least it seems like it's not Venom. It'd be wild if it was Venom and that was a secret they were able to keep, but it seems like it's a reference to his mutation, kind of going out of control, which I really like the visual of. I also like the inside the mask visual that this movie seems to be leaning on. I think that is a very cool look at Spider-Man, feels very intimate. I don't think we've really gotten anything like this before. Building the HUD for Tony Stark, I think is a big reason why Iron Man 1 was so successful, is because you could still see him act, you could still see him emote. I don't think Spider-Man has necessarily the same kind of problem, because he does have more physicality. But I bet Tom Holland just wants to be seen more. So I think this is going to work for that. We learn here, and we've gotten this a little bit before, this is the final semester at MIT for Ned and MJ. And I know some people are upset that we're getting her back immediately. First off, the actors are married now, so I think it's a little unreasonable to assume she's not going to be in the movie a lot. Second off, more importantly, time has to have passed, because time has passed in real life, and these actors do kind of look older. I know they try to keep Spider-Man looking young, and for the most part, I think it works. But like Tom Holland is 30 right now, and I wouldn't say he looks 30, but it would be a little harder to sell him as a college student. I don't necessarily know about Ned or MJ, but I like that they're letting these characters age. I would have liked a full movie without MJ, but that's what the creatives want to do. I'm willing to see if it's worth it here. It seems like a lot of this movie is going to be inspired by a comic book storyline called The Other. It was a Spider-Man comic from the 2000s. It was written by Peter David, Reginald Hudlin, and J. Michael Straczynski, with art by Mike Deodato, Pat Lee, and Mike Wernigo. It's not necessarily my favorite Spider-Man story, but it is the one where he mutates more. It is one of the 2 Spider-Man stories that is getting a reprint ahead of this. It's Spider-Man The Other, and then Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which I'd love. Like if I had to recommend just one of those 2 to read, Superior Foes without a doubt. That's the one where a couple of Spider-Mans, I'd say C-list villains get together to try to pull off a heist. They're led by Boomerang, who is in this movie. I'm not sure if there's any other crossover, but it's a really fun book. I will say, we don't see very much of that in this trailer. The first trailer showed us a lot of images of just Spider-Man fighting a bunch of villains, like Boomerang and Tarantula. There are others that have been rumored to be part of this movie. Some, I think, will get dispatched in like an early scene where we go through a montage of characters fighting Spider-Man. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple have slightly bigger roles, but as we're going to see in this trailer, it covers a lot of ground. There are a lot of characters. I'm very curious to see how it weaves together, so I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those characters just kind of come and go. But speaking of the other, we get a look at Spider-Man's organic webs. It's gross. Glad they don't linger on it. I don't mind organic webs as much as some people do. I think they did a good job over the course of the 3 Spider-Man movies and then his bazillion appearances in other Avengers movies of really like committing to the web shooters. We had like that one scene in the first one where Ned uses the web shooter. Like, we've done web shooter stuff enough that I don't think this feels like Sam Raimi Spider-Man where they're just doing this because it's more convenient. It does feel like it's a story beat. Not that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man was more convenient, but I do think it was a little neater to have all of his powers come from the spider experiment and not have him kind of try to invent a couple of them. The same way that Spider-Man probably has the simplest getting the suit montage in all of comics, which is he draws the suit perfectly, zoom in on the suit, he's wearing the suit. I like that these movies get into a little bit more of the like, how did he make those web shooters? And like, what do they run on? How does he get more of it? It's like, oh, he has to go to school and make it secretly in school. I thought it was very clever. The organic webs lean into Banner. We see Bruce Banner here. He's got his little monitoring thingy from She-Hulk. And I believe this was also in the Shang-Chi post-credit scene. I think that's cool because like in She-Hulk, it felt like that was something they were doing so that they could put him in parts of the show without having to use CGI. Although realistically, they did have a lot of Professor Hulk in that show. I guess in She-Hulk, it exists because there's no way he can need a blood transfusion unless he is not Hulk, and he shouldn't not be Hulk based on what's happening in the narrative. But this could be used kind of the same way that Beast's mutation is changed in Days of Future Past, where it is clearly not being used, partially because they made it a story thing, but also partially because it makes the movie a lot cheaper and it's convenient, and I'm sure the actor preferred it. But yeah, like, I respect here that it's clearly so that later we can have him not wearing that. We see it in this trailer, and then he goes Hulk. I do think his dialogue with Peter's a little funny. Peter wants to help him with, like, mutated, radiated DNA, which makes sense because that's kind of how the Hulk works. And Peter asks,
Could you get rid of the bad aspects but keep the good?
and then Hulk answers,
How would you decide what parts of nature are good or bad?
which I think is an interesting kind of smart question coming from anyone but Hulk, because Hulk, you know what's the bad is when you lose control and destroy a building, which we're gonna see more in this movie. Like, you know what the bad parts of the mutation are. That's why you got rid of them in Endgame, so that you were just normal and you took selfies with kids. But still, it's fine. One thing I thought was cute, Spider-Man crashes into a wedding. It's funny, to me, it kind of looks like the wedding from The Drama, which Zendaya was in. Then we get confirmation by Sony, unless they're tricking us, which I don't think is happening, that the character played by Tremel Tillman is named Metzger. People believe this is a reference to William Metzger. The character was essentially like a take on William Stryker in later X-Men comics. He's only been in 6 issues, I think. He's very inconsequential, but it is like the biggest thing for me that confirms that we're doing something with one of the X-Men here. We haven't seen any. Maybe there's one that's hiding in the trailer. But, like, if we weren't doing an X-Men thing, there is no good reason to have this character do this. Because kids say, well, sure, he's an X-Men character, but he's in charge of damage control in the comics, and you need somebody to be in charge of damage control. He's not involved with damage control at all. This would be a wild name to pick out of nowhere for no reason. One thing that I love in this trailer, and we've seen it in the other ones, but the body jump motion. I love how much they have made that something physical that the actors do when whatever is leaving their bodies and going to another body. I had theorized potentially this was like the Shadow King, because he can usually do that. Other people have mentioned the character Elias Bogan, which is a character from the Extreme X-Men run, who can also kind of do that. Could be. People think this may be, and let's say the name together so we can get done with, you know, beating around the bush. Jean Grey. I'm not convinced this is Jean Grey. Not that I'm not convinced she's in the movie. I'm not convinced she is doing this. Just because, like, it's so mean. The way she's threatening MJ. I know Jean Grey has gone bad in the past, and I know this could be a more severe version of Jean Grey, who is like on the run and thinks Spider-Man is like a tool of the state. But like, I don't know, man, that just doesn't seem like something Jean Grey would do. Also, like, Jean Grey being responsible for a Hulk getting loose event, that also doesn't seem like something she would do, because that is such a big deal. Like, I think these movies do need to work in a little, you know, I hear this now in my head, responsibility when it comes to, like, a Hulk thing happened. And in, like, Age of Ultron's case, Wanda is a bad guy kind of for that. Like, she feels bad. Characters in the movie hate her. I think this would be a wild way to introduce a main character, like one of the main players in the universe, by having them start a Hulk rampage, unless they have a really, really, really good reason or some way to protect people, but it doesn't seem like they do. I love the main narration here. I like that the narrative is still going to focus on her. I also love the ninjas. So it really does feel like they're just doing the hand again. And I don't know if they're going to pretend the hand never happened, or at some point somebody's going to be like, I'm in charge of the hand now. And they're not stupid, because in the Defenders, they were very stupid. And they've got maybe even a wuxia vibe to them. I mean, obviously, the director of this movie, Destin Daniel Cretton, also directed Shang-Chi, which has what is probably the best fight scene in the MCU, which is the fight scene from the beginning of that movie. So, you know, having these characters kind of float around, feel a little magical, I think is cool. I'm curious if the character that is in charge of the hand is going to be a named character, because there's plenty of characters who have been in charge of the hand, specifically women. The one that I would love to see is Elektra. This does not look like Elektra, but that would be really something. We don't get a ton of Punisher here, but I like the Punisher we see in this trailer. And then you get the little joke at the end when Spider-Man is stretching. Stretching is good, like he's saying. It's good for people. I think partially you could chalk this up to him knowing what happens to Spider-Man, like, oh, my back hurts, and going, I gotta stretch if I want to stick around. Like, I don't want to be like him, which was obviously referenced to Tobey Maguire hurting his back in the original Spider-Man movies, but I like that that's kind of worked itself into these, and I think that bit of dialogue is cute. It feels very Spider-Man-y. Unclear in the shot who he's fighting. I don't really care. I would assume some sort of government something or other. I also think it's interesting that we see the shot again of the hand jumping in the air towards Spider-Man, but now it's where it was probably always set, which is in that prison fight, as opposed to in the previous trailer, outside. I don't think that looked great, and I think that was very clear, at least to me, that there was a fight scene with the hand in the trailer, that they were kind of trying to mislead us by changing the background. I like that that's true, because I like that that means you can't really take anything for granted here. Like, oh, that scene suggests that this is happening, but oh, maybe not. Maybe that's another character doing that. I will say one other thing this trailer suggested, and this kind of comes from interviews with the cast that have also been going around today, talking about different colors of Hulks. So there's green Hulks, and I can't remember which one of them. I think it was Ned. It was like, there's other colors too. And Tom Holland was like, I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that. He said it, as if that is spoiling a secret. And I feel like this feels a little bit more choreographed than that. Like they told him, you say that secret to get people talking. And here we are, I'm talking about it. That matches up with the line we get in this trailer where Spider-Man says to Hulk,
I didn't know you could get that big.
Because the Hulk that we're seeing fighting Spider-Man in a couple of shots where the Hulk exists is not that big compared to other versions of the Hulk that we've seen. So I do think there's a shot that Hulk goes further, and maybe we do get big old gray Hulk. That would be cool. You know, we'll see. All in all, this trailer looks great. I am very excited about it. I've been very curious about this movie. I feel like they're doing a lot of stuff. They're taking a lot of risks, and I respect that. And like, honestly, when you look at like Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four First Steps or Brave New World, I can look at those trailers and kind of put together like, oh, I think I see what this movie is doing. This scene will lead into this scene, and then this guy will get this costume. That's why he wears that for the rest of the trailer. Big fights over here, right? I really don't know what the structure of this movie is going to be, and I'm really happy about that. We'll probably get one more big final trailer, and then this Sony, so some stuff will probably get leaked. But I would love it if this was all we got, because I think people will be talking about this. I do think it's crazy that they have Sadie Sink on the press tour with the other three, and we still have not even seen her in the trailer at all, technically, outside of maybe if you turn the brightness up a lot in one shot. Like, I feel like people will frequently say, like, oh, I wish they were able to keep the secret of Hulk being in Ragnarok, because that'd be so cool in the theater. It really seems like they're trying here. And to be fair to Sony Spider-Man movies, they tried so hard to keep the other Spider-Man out of the marketing for Spider-Man No Way Home, and almost succeeded. So, like, you know, they're doing better than they used to. I respect it. And there's some things like that we're not seeing, and I think that's great. It does not appear that Spider-Man made a deal with the devil or something like that, like he does in the thing that leads to these comics. That's pretty much what happened with Doctor Strange in the last movie. But that reminds me of a video I watched recently by Curious Archive. It's about the modern devil. It's part of their Gods and Monsters series, and it looks at the history of the devil as a part of religion, but also as a pop culture figure and how that character has evolved. I think it really is fascinating because so much of what we think of as like the devil, like the look and what he does, comes from literature, media. And you can watch that video along with tons of other videos exclusively on this video sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is a subscription streaming platform that I and a bunch of other YouTubers you probably already love helped to create. First thing that's important, all of our videos go up there early and ad-free. So if you want to be the first person to see one of my Nando V movies or Nando cut videos, Nebula is for you. And then there are series like Jetlag or Tom Scott's England, where they go up on Nebula a week before they go anywhere else. Then we also have Nebula exclusive series of videos, like Tom Nicholas has a series called Slow News Day. Captain Midnight has a series called Showrunners, where he looks at different people that have created television shows. The first episode is about Rod Serling in The Twilight Zone. The second episode is about Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad. Looks at the journey of how they got to where they were and how that shaped the series they would showrun. And then Curious Archives Gods and Monsters series looks at these different legendary creatures from religion and mythology and talks about how the ideas of those creatures has evolved over time and they've turned into pop culture characters. So you can find all that great stuff exclusively on Nebula. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year. That is $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get Nebula for just $2.50 a month. That is $30 for the year. It's an awesome deal. Go check it out. I guarantee there is a creator you already love who's part of Nebula. And if you spend some time on Nebula, I bet you'll find your new favorite creator. After me, of course. Your second favorite creator because I'm your favorite. Don't correct me. Again, that is go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you around.